All right, so we are going to be talking about our next painting project, which is called our Motif Portrait. And our artist of inspiration is actually a contemporary artist, a current day artist named Kehinde Wiley. So the two things that we're really going to be focusing on is the terms motif and portrait, and talking about how we're going to be tying those two together, and how we are going to be taking a look at the work of Kehinde Wiley, how he ties those two together, how those play a role in his personal artwork, and what are some of the things that inspire him and make his artwork very unique, and what are some of the elements that we want to take as inspiration from his work and apply it to our own for this project. So as we get started, we want to talk about what a portrait is. A portrait is a painting, a drawing, a photograph, or an engraving of a person, especially one depicting only the face or head and shoulders. So think about like your school photos, okay, or a selfie that you might take. So that's essentially just your face, your head, and shoulders. So here are some examples of self-portraits and portraits that artists have done. You notice that they're all very similar, okay? Head and shoulders. You don't necessarily have to have the person facing their body facing directly towards you. But a lot of times you want to have to see the person's face. A lot of times that's what you're trying to capture, is the expression on that person's face. I do notice that we have one that is kind of like the exception of that one. We have The Son of Man by Rene Magritte on the far right with an apple in front of it, but that has a totally different meaning going along that as well. The fact that you can't see the person's face, making it very ambiguous. So that has a special meaning tied into it. So that is the first thing we really want to focus on, is the idea of a portrait capturing that person's face. Okay. And there's a video talking about the history of portraiture that I would like you guys very much to watch and to see. The other thing that we want to talk about is what a motif is. So a motif is a decorative design or a pattern that is emphasized in a creative piece through consistent repetition. Okay, so think about lines, shapes, colors that are repeating over and over again. That's what a pattern is, okay? But you're trying to find something that's very decorative, okay? It doesn't have to be an exceptionally complicated design, okay? The one that's, my third from the right is just a bunch of lines, okay? It doesn't have to be super complex. It doesn't have to have a whole bunch of colors, but you want to have something that is repeating, whether it's lines, shapes, colors, or all of it. And the motif, the decorative sort of pattern design that we're going to be using, is going to be applied to the background of our image. And we'll be showing you guys a whole bunch of examples as we keep moving forward through these slides. But these are going to be sort of emphasizing the kind of mood that we want to set in our image. Do we want it to look very regal? Do we want it to be sort of like fun and bubbly? Do we want it to be very powerful kind of looking? Do we want it to be very more like rigid or scientific and linear? Like, how do we want people to feel when they look upon this person? Like, what are they going to know about this person based on the background that was chosen for them? Okay. Because this background is going to be kind of like how we used in our previous project, how we use color to sort of emphasize an emotion. We're going to be using designs and patterns to emphasize kind of like a mood, or how we want people to feel about this person. Okay. So that's how we're going to be using motifs to influence our artwork. So we are going to be talking about an artist called Kehinde Wiley. And before we jump into that, we're talking about portraits. So with portraiture, back in the day, portraits were of lords, of rich husbands and wives. We had princes, we had ladies, we had nobles that were in battle. We had kings, we had people that were referenced from the Bible and other religious texts. Okay, and what do you notice about all of these people? Okay. When we had one of artists came through the Louvre and all these other museums, he looked at all these people and noticed that they were a lot of times rich people. They were a lot of times people that were very wealthy, noble, well off, and he never saw himself in these paintings. Okay, and that person was Kehinde Wiley. Okay, he loved art, absolutely loved art, and he studied the greats. He loved Titian and Raphael and loved all these famous artists, okay? And he loved their work, very skilled. He studied these master artists, okay? And he was very sort of disappointed that people like him were very underrepresented in the art world, and he wanted to change that. Okay, so we're gonna be learning a lot more about Kehinde Wiley, how he mixed his own kind of flair with the work of the great masters, how he became a very influential person, how he became America's like favorite, kind of artist, very hip hop's favorite artist, very popular type of person, almost like the movie star of the art world, very popular character in the art world today. So I'm going to show you a couple of his artworks, kind of like the artworks that kind of inspired his works, and we're going to be talking a lot more about him. So we have this work by Jacques-Louis David in 1801. This is actually Napoleon Bonaparte. You may have heard about him in history class, or maybe stumbled upon a random documentary or YouTube video or a meme or whatever. But this is Napoleon Bonaparte crossing the Great Alps. Okay, Frenchman, very well-known battle war hero type person. Okay, so he was pictured in this very majestic pose on his horse, okay? And you guys may not know this, but how a horse is posed in a painting reflects how the person died. If a horse has all 4 feet on the ground, if a horse has 1 foot up, but if a horse is rearing up like this, it means that the person died in battle. So Napoleon died in battle. You can tell just because his feet are rearing up like this. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, so we have Napoleon right here, and we have the twist that Kehinde Wiley put on it. So what he did is he took, people that he met on the street and had them pick out their favorite pose from this huge book of art history masterpiece works, and they got to pose like their favorite person. And so we have this rendition of Napoleon Bonaparte crossing the Alps, but we have this really funky kind of version of it that's very hip, very modern, and representing a different era, different culture, which is really cool. And then he does it once again with Franz Hall's work. Here we have a nobleman posing with his big puffy pants, his fluffy collar, his fancy hat, and his sword. And then we got this real hip artwork right here that Kehinde Wiley picked. And this is really cool. Nice Timberland boots. Very nice. And then we have this work. It's a sculpture by Auguste Clesinger, 1847. It's a woman being bit by a serpent. Very tragical marble sculpture. And then we have Kehinde Wiley's rendition of it. He also did recreations of sculpture, which is really cool. Very beautiful piece. I love the colors in this one specifically. Marvelous. He also did this work for Barack Obama's presidential painting back in 2018. He was the first Black American artist to paint for our first Black American president, which is super cool. Anyways, this wasn't modeled after any famous master painting, but it was a very well done painting that brought in many people to the museum that's currently on display. Very cool. Anyways, so if you haven't noticed that there's sort of like a pattern in between each of his artworks, that there is a wonderful portrait. You have this beautifully rendered figure, and then you have this very elaborate background, okay? Very detailed designs that are in the background. And that's kind of like what we're kind of going for, using his bright colors to sort of inspire our work. And the big thing that's what we're really looking for in this project is we're going to be finding an image for our motif. So for our background, we're finding an image of your choice, whether it is some pop culture icon, whether it is your favorite YouTuber, whether it is a picture of your friend or family, a selfie, I don't care. So a portrait image, also a motif image, and we're going to blend those two together to create an image inspired by Candy Wiley's work. And whether you're using acrylics or whether you're using watercolors, but we're going to be creating color harmony to enhance your chosen image. And that's going to be more focused on our background, finding a good color harmony for that. So stay tuned for some information about choosing a color harmony. So don't worry about that too much yet. And then using your motif to enhance your theme and demonstrating good craftsmanship in your work. So no matter what kind of painting medium you're using, you're expected to have very good craftsmanship for this. You will have a couple weeks to work on this, so take your time to do it very well, okay? So we'll have a lot of videos on how to get this kind of set up, a lot of troubleshooting kind of stuff going on to really help you make sure that this is the best that it can be. So stay tuned for further information, further videos, and please check out the video about the portraits, the history of portraits, and also there will be a video and a form about Candy Wiley and his work because he's a very interesting artist and definitely should check him out to get some well-rounded information